It's hope, it's getting clearer. The more I think of all the tough times we survived, the more it makes me smile. If nothing's broken us, yeah, nothing never will. 'Cause dreams are hard to kill. And I know somewhere's a place where we can build our memories. Somewhere, just hold on tight, it'll be alright. Show me the way, show me a way to somewhere, to somewhere. Nothing from the past can hurt us anymore. We're free of what we lost. Not anything or anyone will hold us back, no matter what the cost. And I know somewhere's a place where we can build our memories.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the High Five. We're going to talk about the NFL draft. Yes, sports. I know some of you aren't all that bad. We're going to talk about Gronk is back in football. What in the world is happening? And that was a great conspiracy. Did they put it all together 3 years ago, all to prove that Belichick wasn't the star and Tom Brady and Gronk were the reason the team was good the last 10 years in New England? We're going to find out. We're going to talk about, chargebacks. What in the world are they? They're in our payments industry, and, well, they're kind of a dirty four-letter word, but they have a couple extra letters. All those things and more right here on the High Five.
The time has come, the questions are said, opinions hide, discussions are led, a show about nothing and everything, it's all the same. We've got sports, entertainment, sales, and marketing. It's time for the High Five. We've got it all covered. It's time for the High Five. We've got it all covered. Yeah. The High Five.
That's right, everybody. It is time for the High Five, and we're going to be talking all kinds of great things with some of the most impressive men found in the universe. The first one we're going to bring up is from Warsaw, Indiana, the world where the geese are now outnumbering the ducks because the battle is on, the war is real, and Brian Linke is right in the middle. How are you, Mr. Brian Linke?
The geese outnumber the ducks. Is that what you said?
That is what I said.
I like that. I'm well. I'm good. I think I'm well rested. How can anybody not be well rested in the quarantine? So I'm good. Ready for a productive Thursday.
Okay, I'm just going to say, who cannot be well rested? Me. I'm not well rested in the quarantine, but
well,
all right.
That's your own fault. That's your own fault.
We're all right. Some of us are working more than we ever had, but hey, that's the way we roll. All right. And also from Glenwood, Colorado, where the elk are definitely outnumbering the geese and where the people go to play and soak in waters that'll heal all your sorrows. Mr. Danny Shard. How are you, Danny Shard?
Good morning, High Five Nation. Good morning, Nate and Mr. Linke. I got to say, you're getting a lot better with your introductions. It's impressive. Yeah.
We're practicing. I take it up about 3 a.m, just trying to come up with something. Actually, I just came up with those things. I don't practice the intros, so maybe my impromptu skills are getting a little better. All right, we've got 5 topics, 5 things we're going to run through today. We got things from sports, no entertainment today. We'll see what all goes on, but we can always talk about things as they come up because we're just here to have a great time, bring some great business insights, have a little fun, and talk a little what in the world? Gronk is back. That's happened 2 days ago, and I haven't talked about these guys, and I would want to know what Brian Linke thinks about it. But I think it was a conspiracy from the beginning. I think Gronk knew he was going to take all year off and come back wherever Tom Brady was going to go, and Tom knew that he had Gronk in his back pocket, and what a crazy trade. What do you guys think?
You know what I think? I think that those guys are just having way too much fun, to be honest with you. I mean, I just think that the two of them are, once. I mean, Brady just made up his mind that he was done in New England. I think he made it up a long time ago. I think he's ready to be done with Belichick. I think he's ready to be done with Robert Kraft and the whole thing. And then once that happened, Gronk did the wrestling thing, and he's just a goofball to begin with. And Brady called him up and said, you know what, this is going to be a great thing down here. It's 75 and sunny every single day, and come down here. Let's see if we can win a Super Bowl.
I think it's going to be like that team. If Tom Brady can be 75% of Tom Brady, or just like 90% of what he was last year. And what kind of a passing attack does he have? And Gronk is now playing with one of the greatest offensive-minded coaches, and you've got Christensen running the offense. It's going to be an interesting little thing.
It is going to be interesting. I'm excited to kind of see it, but I don't think I think it's a bunch of hype, honestly. I do think some of it was planned. I like the way that Gronk made his exit from the NFL, which was, I'm looking forward to the next phase of life, right? Like I'm not going to continue beating up my body and getting hurt as I get older. And then this move with Brady and now to pick up Gronk, I think there was some plans behind it, right? And I think it had something to do with, just the way that the Patriots treat their players, and probably were just over it and ready for the next stage. I mean, let's be honest, those guys know how to win championships, right? But, Belichick and Brady had like zero relationship, right? I mean, there was nothing there. I don't think they've ever even played golf together, and both of them play golf on a regular basis. So just kind of a weird dynamic up there, outside of football. Not that it has to be, but I think in some ways with these guys, it's bigger than that. So I think they drove them out, and this was probably planned.
Let me tell you another thing. Okay, playing football in Tampa, Florida, as opposed to in Boston,
I'll take that.
Massachusetts. That's right. That's right. So like once, and I think had it been in a cold weather city or a team that didn't have an offensive minded head coach, because Bruce Arians, I guess, arguably is maybe the best offensive minded coach in the league right now. Yeah. So I think a lot of that had to do with it. But again, I'm a fan of the NFL, and I'd like to believe that both of those guys. I mean, obviously the money is something, the weather is something, but I just think those guys have fun playing, and they wanted to stay together and see if they can get together and win one more Super Bowl.
I think it's going to be a fun time. And let's just move right in, because we know tonight is the draft, the NFL draft. And I just wanted I'm going to pull up and kind of talk. I have a mock draft in front of me. There are, 100 different mock drafts. But let's talk about a couple picks just to see what you guys think, where we are, what things you think are maybe going to shake it up as everybody comes from their basements live with the first pick of the NFL draft from Roger Goodell's basement. We're going to pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. Is there any chance, and I think we know now that apparently they've been told Joe Burrow he's number one. Is that the only move they make? Could they have done something else?
There's no chance that they pick up anybody else. No chance.
Who the Bengals?
Bengals. No chance.
The thing about it is Joe Burrow is just just a winner, right? I mean, so like, and teams, obviously he's very talented and it's cool under pressure, but he's just a winner, and I think that goes a long way with these teams now, and they like to draft guys that are used to winning.
They do, and I mean, even the Bengals can't mess this up. I mean, it's not. There's just no other choice when you don't have it, and so what we know is they're going to waive Andy Dalton a couple days after the draft. They're going to get him slotted into that automatic number one pick, get Joe Burrow going. And if we see football this fall, which we all hope we do, we're going to see Joe Burrow wearing the orange and black. So that takes us to our second pick. And I've been teased, and I didn't want to hear it, that we have a controversial view, at least from Brian Linke, that who it's going to become. Because from my understanding, it was possibly going to be someone from that school that's in Columbus, Ohio, that I refuse to mention their name. And that may come a couple picks here early on. But Brian, what do you think? The Washington Redskins are on the clock. What is going to happen?
I see, again, I think Chase Young is the obvious answer, just because, again, he was just so dominant in college and again, played for a winner. But if I'm picking, and again, I guess I'm a little bit biased towards the ACC. I'm drafting a kid from Clemson and Isaiah Simmons, and because he's just a freak. He's just one of those guys that he's played multiple positions in college. He played linebacker, he actually played defensive back a little bit, defensive end. He runs a sub 4.40, I think like a 4.38, 6'4", 240 pounds. I mean, I don't know. Just he's just a guy that comes from a program, and Chase Young does as well. And I'm not sure you can go wrong with either one. But again, I think I'm just biased towards the ACC, and I've just seen Simmons play, and he's unblockable in college. I mean, he was just a human wrecking ball. So I would pick him.
Well, I don't know. I Chase Young. Now, I will say, the last time I fully watched Chase Young was when, unfortunately, my Wolverines were against his team, and we did not win that game. But Chase Young, we totally stopped him, and he didn't cause any problem for our inept quarterbacking in the backfield. So I don't know, but he is a specimen. And certainly after what we saw in San Francisco with Bosa this year, of a person coming out of that size and what they can do, can make a big difference on that defense. So, Danny, got any other choices you have for the Redskins? Or do we just really all hope that they blow it one more time so that Keith Sampson doesn't ever have anything good to talk about when he says hail to the Redskins?
I think they're gonna go with the obvious choice. And in fact, I would actually love to see the Bengals come out with the obvious choice with a little bit of a shakeup and go with Chase Young. I mean, he's the best overall player in the draft, right? Period. Of course, Joe Burrow is the best quarterback, but so tough to pass up a guy like Chase Young. It really is. I'd love to see a shakeup like that and watch Burrow's drop. I actually watched that movie Draft Day the other day. Have you guys seen that with Costner? He's the GM for the Browns. Have you guys seen that movie?
No,
I never saw it.
It's a great movie. You should watch it. And it's, just shaking up the entire draft. And they had, a top quarterback. They had the number one pick, and they chose not to go after him, and they shook this whole thing up. And this quarterback ended up dropping to like 7th or 8th or something like that, which changed his money quite a bit. But they found like flaws in his character, and there's a bunch of behind the scenes. But it was really cool how fast things move on draft day when things come down to it. So, although I think they have told Burrows that he is the number one, I'd love to see a shakeup like that and watch him drop down a little bit. And I think Chase Young's the overall pick.
The thing about the NFL is that one guy, I don't care who it is, one guy is not going to make the entire. The league is just too. That's why when guys, when teams draft offensive linemen, they always get booed for it. But these guys know what they're doing. And if nobody's going to block for their quarterback, then that quarterback's going to have a short-lived career.
Yeah.
Well, and we got a couple crazy things that can happen after 1 and 2. No one's predicting that any of those people, but I would love to see it. I'm like you, Danny, to see that actually change. But when it comes to the Detroit Lions, the Giants, we start getting in number 5, or the Dolphins, who have 3 number 1s and a low number 2. What do we see as who's going to be movers and shakers? What should they do? I mean, you say you can't be, one guy doesn't do it, but the Miami Dolphins have 4 high picks. Is the draft that thick and that long that they can actually totally change their team for a team that with Fitz magic last year, it actually overachieved and didn't get the number 1 and didn't suck for Tua?
They have 14 picks, Nate. Yeah. The Dolphins do.
Yeah.
14. You have 3 first-round picks. So, yeah, that team can change in a year. I mean, you have 14 picks. I mean, because you can find guys in the 5th and 6th round. Happens all the time, right? I mean, the guys that you're hearing about are the stars from the big programs. There's a lot of really good players, and a lot of really good players that are playing at smaller schools that you don't hear about. So yeah, I mean, so the Miami Dolphins with 14 picks, 3 first-round picks, I mean, they could change their team in an instant. And I think, but having, again, they're looking at drafting a quarterback, and again, so
yeah, I've got that little school from Columbus getting some back-to-back picks here, Nate. So you got Chase Young and Okudah that are going to be back-to-back. Probably 2 and 3. I'm gonna guess, but it'd be pretty cool to see him go 1-2. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I mean, those guys are top in the draft for sure.
Let's try that again. All right. Yeah, that's exactly what I feel about that. No, but they're good. I have to admit they're good. I see Josh Brown jumps in. He says, Herbert to the Dolphins or the Chargers. So let's take a Herbert, a Oregon quarterback. Most of the people thought he could have gone. Now he's got that beautiful head of hair, signed by Head and Shoulders, out there repping, making sure he doesn't have any dandruff flaking all over his shoulders. And you wonder where he's going to go. Well, who's going to jump up there and get that quarterback? And then there's also talk about what's up with Tua. 4 surgeries has scared everyone off. Let's answer those 2 questions last in our 2020 NFL draft preview as we get ready for tonight.
I've got the Chargers getting Tua. The Chargers are going to get that little fragile guy Tua out of Alabama for sure, and they'll be stuck with him. He'll be the next Vinny Testaverde. He'll just be a good backup for everybody.
I disagree. I think he's a can't miss.
He's a can't miss?
Fragile.
He's a gamer. I'll give him that. He is a gamer. Yeah.
Okay, he's not fragile. Did you see how the guy landed on him? I mean, he dislocated his hip. I mean, for goodness sakes. I mean, he got killed on that play. But I think you're going to be surprised. I think he's really, really good.
I think there's a good chance he's really, really good. And 2 of those surgeries were high ankle sprains that no other teams are doing surgeries for. And that hip, I have to think it's a freak injury. And as long as we have good treatment, he's actually coming back, I would go after him. I would not play him this year. I'd let him fully heal. And, that may not even be in their hands. He may not be playing. No one may be playing this year. We'll see what happens with that. But definitely that he's not going to get a full training camp, a full off season, and coming off that crazy of a hip injury, I wouldn't touch him. What do you think? Where does Herbert go?
Well, if the Dolphins don't take Tua, then Herbert goes to the Dolphins. I mean, if Herbert goes to the Dolphins, I think either one. I think the Dolphins will take, if they take Tua, and the Chargers get Herbert.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to go to either one of those teams, whichever one the Dolphins pick first.
Right.
And the Denver Broncos, the 15th pick of the 2020 NFL draft, I'm going to say they're going to get that receiver out of Alabama, Ruggs. That guy's fast. He's a stud. We need it too, right next to Cortland Sutton. So, yeah, Broncos.
So you would want him over Judy from Alabama?
I do.
Yeah, I think both of them are right up there. But let me just go back to that. How about the kid from Oklahoma too? The what was his name? Lamb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's another one that But back to that Herbert kid. I mean, all NFL teams love big, strong guys, and he is. And again, I'm high on Tua, but 6'6", 6'7", 240 pounds. I mean, NFL teams love guys that can sling it all over the place and are big, strong guys. So I think Herbert is going to be up there as well.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching that tonight. We'll have a little bit of reaction tomorrow on our show of the High Five. And we're going to continue with our number 3 as we make a little transition. We've done a little sports on the front end. So let's talk a little bit about what do we know and research about competition? How important is it? How important is it to know what we're going up against in the marketplace, what other people are doing? How important is it for us to make sure that we know what the other offers, the people we're selling to, the merchants or the customers that we're connecting with are seeing in that, and other people may be placing in front of them to make sure that we're competitive? Brian Linke, how much do you pay attention to the competition, and how does that change how you sell and how you communicate to your customers?
The thing of it is, I mean, Danny Starr's probably going to fire me for this answer, but not a lot. And the reason, I think the reason to me is, I think PayProTech is on the leading edge. I think we have a great program for our agents. I think a lot of other companies are out there, fluffing it a little bit, making it seem like it's better than it is. And again, that's something that I've learned from Danny over these years. These guys that are offering these really high residual splits, and really when you actually look at their Schedule A, they're not what they thought it was. So my answer is not a lot. I focus on what we're doing, and believe me, we're moving extremely fast, and we're staying on the leading edge of everything. And so my answer is I don't pay a lot. Again, we get statements from merchants. We take a look at them. We do our analysis, and I don't. Danny's going to have a different answer than I do.
I think I know what he's really trying to say, and I'm a little disappointed in that answer, but I think
I knew you would be.
I think I know what he was getting at, right? And I think what Brian was getting at is, PayProTech, and Nate, you're the one who's the driving force behind this all, is we try to stay in our lane, right? And we're always just trying to focus on what we do and do it as best as we possibly can. But if you're not in tune with what your competition is doing, you're missing out. We talked about it yesterday, how like Square is a driver, right? I mean, they literally motivated all of us to be better, and they're a huge competitor. Brian, I would beg to differ that you would go into any game, being that you're the sports guy on the call, that you would go into any game not knowing your competition, right?
No, I agree with you. But again, I've always focused more on my team and myself rather than
100%.
Right.
But knowing your competition, knowing what's out there, what you're up against, you're able to combat against it, right? And I think, I do spend time just seeing what our competitors are doing or not doing. I think that speaks volumes more than anything of what our competitors are not doing, whether it's proactive communication or things like that. But I look at this in a lot of different ways, more than just the payments industry, right? I mean, you got to know what's out there and what's available to your customers so you can sell against it and compete against it. I think it's important to know that or get better because of it, right? Holy cow, look what they're doing. We haven't done that. We need to do or get on that level. So a lot of times our competition, like I said with Square, makes us better, and we gotta pay attention to them.
I totally agree. And I think Brian is saying he's working with a team that he knows is putting ahead, because he knows that PayProTech is paying attention to the competition, knowing what's out there in the market, and making sure that we're on the leading and cutting edge, so he can sit back and do a little other things that focus on that. And that's a viable option to be part of the team. But no matter where you are, I think you've got to know what's going on in the market. You've got to be connected to all the things. Now, I also think it's a very important what Brian is kind of, I think, was talking about, and Brian, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got to be in a place where you're confident that you trust that the people who are around you are paying attention to all the signals. Because if you're out in the field and you're selling, you're probably not going to have the time to put as much as I do in trying to make sure that we know what everybody else is doing. Brian, was that a summary of some of what you're saying?
Well, Nate, first of all, thanks for bailing me out. I really appreciate that. But yes, it is. Again, you have to trust the company that you're working for, the things that they have in place, whether you're an agent or a merchant, because if you don't, it's awfully hard to, again, if you don't believe in it, it's awfully hard to sell.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think knowing what's going on, because what happens to our partners or our sales executives, Danny, when people take a step in and they realize they don't know what's already been offered and they're sideswiped by an offer that someone else gave to the merchant they're presenting to. And they were like, really? They can do that? That is not helpful, right?
It's not, no. And I think even worse is not being educated on your competition and trying to compete against them on something that you don't know, right? So like literally saying something that's not true or that you're not familiar with, and then finding out from a customer or another competitor that you were incorrect. So I think you got to be educated, know before you talk about it, and but yeah, Nate, I mean, if you're losing a deal on something that you had no idea existed, that's a big one.
So Danny, how are the ways that you stay up? Because you don't want to spend all your time, because you want to focus on putting your message and getting that message out. But how do you stay aware of what the competition is doing and what is happening out in the marketplace?
I just get really involved with, obviously I'm on all of the industry trade show announcements, but I do a lot of catch-up reading through the Green Sheet, digital transactions. I just try to dedicate some time each day to hearing what's going on in our industry, right? And then a lot of it just being in this industry for so long and connected to so many different people through LinkedIn or anywhere else, and being on these distribution lists, a lot of it comes to you. So it's just a matter of paying attention and reading the stuff that you receive, as opposed to just taking a quick glance at it.
Danny Shard is the best in the business. Okay, that's easiest. He's the best out there. So when you have the best, you just kind of follow, right?
Absolutely, Brian Linky. The people are cheering and they're spoken. It's all about Danny Shard. Absolutely.
That's not a lie.
So, I mean, I think what we're saying, and I think we're all together on this, is you've got to know what the competition is. You've got to work with a team of people who are competent and make sure that they're aware when the competition is there. Because if you're not, then you are going to put yourself in situations where you lose your credibility, because you're going to walk in, make an offer of something, and not realize what's going to undermine you or do better than you. And then you're going to be left there in your boxers, and you might as well just walk out because you're all done. And so knowing your competition is extremely important. And I would say being connected to people like Danny, like Brian, making sure, passing through the partner relationship team and the relationship managers in the PayProtect world, whatever industry you're in, make sure you're connecting with other experts, other people who are staying informed, because you can't know it all. It's absolutely impossible. There's too many things that are coming in all the time. So you got to make sure you're on top of it by surrounding yourself with people and putting content into your head that's going to help you be more competitive in the market, and make sure you're aware of everything that's going out in that marketplace, because that's going to help you grab that win. And that's what we're all about, and just making sure that we're winning and succeeding in all that we're doing. So we're going to move on to number 4 as we get
really quick, Nate, too.
Go for it, Danny.
Just to encourage anybody listening that's a sales partner in our industry, if you're not, getting involved, like jumping into our Facebook group or a lot of other Facebook group, right? There's merchant sales group, merchant services. There's Bank Card Life. It's a great, kind of venue, if you will, for a lot of people that are in the industry asking questions, updating each other on what the competition's doing and what they're up against and what options are out there. And a lot of times you're just, like myself, I mean, sitting back as an audience member and just watching and kind of reading and kind of seeing what answers to questions are. And that's a huge advantage. So jump in and get a part of those groups, because they're really, really informative.
Absolutely. All right, back to setting up our number 4, which is a quote that I will bring up. Let me do something here so that our gentlemen can actually see what I'm posting up here, so they can see it here. All right, and I'll bring it back down here in a second. If your ship doesn't come in, swim out to meet it. Jonathan Winters, a comedian of some lore back in the day. One of the guys connected to, I remember him with Bob Hope in my early years, back when I was a little, Brian was 50 and I was 5. But I loved this quote: if your ship doesn't come in, swim out to meet it. Gentlemen, when you hear that quote, what does that say for where we're living today and where we find ourselves in a lot of situations, not where we thought we were going to be 2 months ago?
Wasn't he in the Poseidon Adventure?
I don't even know what that is, so I'm going to say yes.
Oh, for goodness sakes. What do you mean? No, what the Poseidon Adventure is? Google it and watch the movie this weekend. Oh, you know what? It's not him. I don't think. It's Shelley Winters is in that movie. She dies of a heart attack. Jack Albertson's in that movie.
All right.
Anyway, Ernest Borgnine's in that movie.
All right, back to the quote, Jonathan Winters.
Sorry. Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, okay, but without even Googling it or just if you read it, what it means to me is, if you're just waiting around for something good to happen, I mean, again, in a perfect world, I think that's probably a great way to think, but we don't live in a perfect world, and so if you're not going to go out and grab it, if you're not going to go out and swim out and meet it, then you're going to be left behind, and that's what it means to me.
I mean,
go ahead, Danny.
No, for me, it. Can you say the quote again, too, Nate?
Yep. Whoops. It is, if your ship doesn't come in, swim out to meet it.
Yeah, when I heard that, the first thing that I thought about was actually, something Matt Hoskins taught me and actually has taught all of us quite a bit. He did a big presentation on the art of hunting versus farming, right? And that's kind of what that quote means to me is like the farmers are the ones that are just kind of sitting back and waiting for things to come to them. And then you've got your hunters that are getting out and getting after it. So I would say the farmers are the ones that are waiting for that boat to come in, and those hunters are the ones that are going out and getting it. And I think that is such an analogy to a lot of things that we can relate to in the business world, especially, right? As salespeople, we've got to go out and get it. There's not that many successful salespeople that sit back and let business come to them, right? So that's what it meant to me.
I mean, if you're a salesperson that relies a lot on referrals. I mean, the only way you get a referral is if you're out there in front of merchants that are giving you referrals. So the people that sit back and wait for that to happen, those are the people that have been out there before. So if you're just going to sit back and wait for referrals, you're gonna be waiting a long time.
Yep.
And I think I was taking this also as that it's time to make. Sometimes things come to you, they just happen, serendipity happens, all of it's coming through, everything's working. But when things change, when the hardships come, when things are unexpected and the boat's not coming and suddenly you're expecting it to dock and it's way out there, get off the dock, start swimming, start making a change, make that pivot. I was listening to a podcast because it's my obligatory problem to always have to mention that I listen to a podcast when I'm talking, is yesterday about Copper Cow, a Vietnamese coffee company that was just getting started up, is about a year old, had just raised some seed funding, was going into a Series A, planning to get a valuation around 10 million, but their whole business proposition was built around being able to place their coffee, and had gotten a contract with Hilton's across the world to get their coffee as a part of in the rooms. Well, suddenly, luckily, they actually figured it out March 1st that this was all going to change, and realized that they had to downsize. They cut their whole team that was working, and it wasn't a huge team, but it cut, I think, 3 people as a 10-person team that was working on the hospitality, refocused on the consumer, and they actually had projected not to be profitable by 2021, and they will be profitable by the end of April, because in 2 weeks they switched their whole focus on how they are going to grow their business from going direct to businesses and going through the hospitality and trying to build brand equity, to figuring out how to get in front of people and creatively get in front of people and to buy their coffee to make at home. It's an interesting product. You can go look at it. But I thought, that means when your boat isn't coming in and you got to jump in, you got to pivot and make a change. And I just kind of love that, in this day and age, there's so much opportunity that we just got to try to figure it out. Go do something, get going. And even if you make another mistake, that's okay, because it's just, at least you did something instead of sitting back and waiting for that ship to come in.
And unfortunately, I think that we live in a world where, more people are waiting than actually going out and doing. And that's why sales is hard. But yeah, the people that go out and go after it are normally the more successful people, in my opinion.
I
agree. All right, it is time for our number 5, where we talk about Merchant Services 101. We try to inform, to inspire, to help you understand the big things of merchant services, the small things of merchant services, and the things we all wish didn't have to exist, but they do. And that's one of those things today. It is a tricky little 4-letter word that's somehow got into a 10-letter word. It's called chargebacks. And so we wonder, Danny, help us understand a little bit, what is a chargeback when it comes to the merchant and the consumer?
Chargeback is when the customer disputes the transaction. A lot of times it's that the goods and services provided were not, up to their standard or not provided at all. But we're actually seeing a significant increase in chargebacks due to fraud, stolen cards, and things like that.
So let's talk through the process of how this actually works. And Brian, I know you walk through our partners and merchants often when they're seeing chargebacks. So for a merchant, what does a chargeback look like, and how does that work in our ecosystem, which is similar to most other ecosystems that are out there?
I just hope that Jennifer Sales and Pamela Bailey are listening, because the two of them take the majority of our chargeback calls. But the way like Danny just said, it's it's initiated by the card holder, and it's a return of funds, and then it ends up being the bank's responsibility to determine whether or not the request was reasonable. And it's just a fight, and it's a battle, and it's just when we get calls in our office regarding chargebacks, and we don't get them nearly as much as we used to, just because we're not dealing with the merchants directly, although we still do. But it's a mucky thing, and nobody wants to deal with it. And again, Pam and Jen are they take the majority of those calls, and they're better people for it.
So how does the merchant find out that they're getting a chargeback, and what do they have to do to prove it when it was a legitimate cost? Because we're seeing people that are chargebacking fraudulently. Is that, how do you say that way?
Fraudulently, yeah.
Fraudulently. I couldn't come up with the pronunciation. Thank you. And then we're also seeing, of course, it being charged back when it is fraud, and somebody is misusing or misappropriating or spoofing a card, and so we charge it back. And then there are bank chargebacks. So let's first, how does the merchant, I put a lot in there. So how does the merchant find out that they've had a chargeback, and what's the immediate? Does that money immediately come back out of their account?
Initially, no, but it depends on the situation. So unfortunately, a lot of other processors take, up to 30 days to notify merchants, and it's usually via writing, right? Like they get a mail or a letter in the mail that says you've got a chargeback, and you've got before this time to submit the proper information to dispute the chargeback. If you don't submit information within this time, you automatically lose. And the challenge with that is a lot of merchants don't get the letter until it's too late, or like, I've only got 2 days to get this information in, or something like that. And a bigger challenge for merchants too is that, the card holders initiate these with the bank, their issuing bank, and the issuing bank reaches out to the processor, which in our case would be EPX, and we're able to communicate to merchants within 1 day of getting that notification to give these merchants more time, right? So they find out immediately. They've got the 30 days to actually put everything together to dispute the chargeback, whether it's signed receipts and invoices and any communication they have with the customer. So that's huge, I think. But the banks and the ones that are actually determining the chargeback is the customer's issuing bank and the card brand. But they're always, I shouldn't say always, but the majority of the time, they're in favor of the cardholder. And it's very tough for merchants to win these chargebacks. I'll give you an example, though. I, as a customer, lost a chargeback last year. Me and Brian were in New York and made a purchase online. Shouldn't have done it. Called the company the next morning, and they said, no, I mean, if you saw this disclaimer on our website, it says, this is final, and you can't charge it back or get a refund. And I'm like,
you didn't get your money back for that?
Did not get my money back for that.
Okay, you never told me that.
Oh yeah. So it was it was a late night let's go skydiving trip, and wake up in the morning like that was a dumb idea. Let's not go skydiving. And called the company. They said no way. I charged it back with American Express. I, as the card holder, got my money back at that point when I initiated the chargeback. But 30 days later, the merchant had provided information that I had agreed to on their website, and I lost the chargeback. So there's ways that merchants can go in and be proactive with their transaction process to win chargebacks like that, but it's tough.
It is becoming tough. And I'm going to make an aside here just for a second and just say that if the two of you had been able to go skydiving, I would have hoped that we had video, because that would have been some epic video for all of us to see. But I
don't think you'd be talking to me right now, because I think Brenda Linke might have made a trip to Colorado. So
well, I agreed with it. I agreed to it. The thing is, it's going to happen one of these days. But I'm glad it didn't happen that day, because the day we had instead of going skydiving was amazing. So,
all right, last question on the chargebacks. How can a merchant prevent as much as possible? Nothing's 100%, but what are things they can do to help prevent more chargebacks and to make sure when there is a chargeback, they're quickly and easily defensible?
I think like Danny said, I think that a lot of the chargebacks today are fraudulent, and so you can, the merchant can do, ask for a couple forms of ID, and just be aware of fraudulent activity. And if they see something that doesn't look right, they immediately let their boss know, and they deal with it directly. This is a tough subject, because it's and again, it's one that my office deals with or dealt with a lot more than it does now, but it's still something that's just tricky.
It is.
Well, and that's why we're here. We are dealing with the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to merchant services, treating it with honesty and, well, a little bit of parody occasionally on the time. So we're going to get ready and try to figure out what we're going to do with the rest of our days as we go on and make this weekend the most epic thing, get ready for the NFL draft. But I want to get some closing words from Mr. Brian Linke, from Mr. Danny Shard. Brian Linke, can you tell me, how are you going to spend your evening watching the NFL draft, and what do you have to say to our fans?
How am I going to spend my evening? I'm going to have ESPN on, and I'm going to watch the virtual whatever, how they do it, and again, the NFL draft has never really been a big thing for me, just because in between draft picks, it's 15 minutes, guys are on the clock, and it just takes such a long time, but I'll have my eye on it. I'll be paying attention.
All right, Mr. Danny Shard, how about you? What are you going to be doing this night? What do you have to say to our incredible audience that's sitting out here watching either live or later in the day today, or maybe next year, and you're really wanting to look back about how wonderful things we prognosticated? Tell us a little about what you're going to be doing tonight and talk to our people.
Fair enough, Brian Linke, and I think a lot of people that are bigger NCAA fans really just like to say, I'm not really going to pay attention to the draft, when in fact you care about it a lot.
No, I'm not saying that I don't. I mean, I think it's I think it's an interesting thing, and right, guys coming out of college that I know just about every single one of them, and this is a huge year, right? I mean, we're going to be able to look back on this. Like, remember that draft whenever it was I think it's in Bristol, right? What is it, at ESPN Studios or something like that, or Roger Goodell's basement?
Well, each one is at their homes in either room. Like the guy in Seattle actually tore out walls in order to get better internet connection. Why didn't just hardwire, I have no idea, because apparently Seattle guy is not real smart. But they're all from their basements. They've all sent cameras, and they've have media packs just all around them. It's going to be crazy. I can't wait to see it.
I can't wait to see it too. I mean, one of the reasons is for that, right? I want to see how the broadcast goes and how chaotic and a shim sham operation this is going to be. It's going to be funny. How I'm going to spend it, I'm going to spend it with my family, and my brother will probably come over, and we'll have a couple of adult beverages, and this morning my son and wife made sure that they had their Bronco gear on, right? It's a big day in Broncos country. So we're excited, and hopefully we get some good draft picks and have some fun. I'm excited to see it.
Well, we are excited to have yet another great high five. We're going to be back tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Or a couple minutes after. And we have a special guest making his first appearance on the high five. The man, the myth, the legend, the man who can be heard without a microphone. Mr. Robert Kramer will be joining us live on the high five.
Kramer.
All right. It's going to be a great time to be alive. We'll be talking about all kinds of things. I'm sure reporting back about how much fun we all have with the draft tonight, how much fun we have in merchant services and selling and serving all of our partners. This has been another episode of the High Five.
The questions are said, opinions had, discussions are led. A show about nothing and everything. It's all the same. We've got sports, entertainment, sales, and marketing. It's time for the high five. We've got it all covered. It's time for the high five. We've got it all covered. Yeah. The high five.
All right. It's a time for another high